Jinwoo Park stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council building, watching ships from hundreds of different worlds come and go. The sight still amazed him after 3 months of being Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy. Ships shaped like crystals floated next to others that looked like metal trees. Some ships had no visible engines but moved through space like swimming fish. "Ambassador Park, the session will begin soon," said Veloth, his alien assistant. Veloth looked like a tall blue human with 4 arms and silver eyes. He came from a world called Nexar Prime, which was known for making the best computers in the galaxy. Jinwoo nodded and walked toward the council chamber. Today was special. After 3 years of talks and tests, Earth was finally getting observer status in the Galactic Council. This meant humans could watch the meetings and speak when asked, but couldn't vote yet. It was still a huge step forward. The council chamber was enormous. It looked like a giant bowl with thousands of seats going up the sides. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien. Some needed water tanks, others needed special gas to breathe, and a few needed complete darkness. The technology that made it all work was beyond anything humans had ever seen. Jinwoo took his seat in the small human section. Only 5 humans were allowed in the chamber today. Besides him, there was General Taehyun Seo from Earth's military, Dr. Minji Choi, who studied alien life, Engineer Kyung-Soo Han, who worked on space technology, and Captain Subin Yu, who commanded Earth's first space station. The session started with routine business. Trade disputes between worlds, requests for help with natural disasters, and updates on exploration missions. Jinwoo noticed something odd. Whenever Earth came up in conversation, some of the most powerful aliens went quiet. The Corvathians were the oldest known species in the galaxy. They had been exploring space for over 50,000 years. Their representative was ancient even by their standards, with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. The Nexari were masters of technology. They could build computers that thought faster than any living brain and ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Their representative was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer with built-in electronics. The Zelthari were known for their mental powers. They could speak to each other with their minds across vast distances and see the future in brief flashes. Their representative looked almost human, but her eyes glowed with a soft purple light. All 3 of these species had one thing in common. When someone mentioned Earth or humans, they stopped talking and looked at each other. It wasn't fear exactly, but it wasn't comfort either. It was like they knew something important that others didn't. The main discussion today was about adding 3 new species to the council. Each species had to prove they were ready for galactic society. This meant showing they could solve problems peacefully, had advanced technology, and could work with others. "The Terrans have completed all requirements for observer status," announced the council leader, a massive creature that looked like a walking tree with crystals for leaves. "Their representative will now address the council." Jinwoo stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. He had practiced this speech for weeks, but standing here made him feel very small. "Thank you for welcoming humanity to the galactic community," Jinwoo began. "Earth is honored to learn from civilizations that have explored the stars for millennia. We hope to contribute our own knowledge and abilities to the greater good of all species." He spoke for 10 minutes about Earth's hopes for peace and cooperation. When he finished, there was polite applause from most of the chamber. But he noticed that the ancient species barely moved. They just watched him with those careful, measuring looks. During the break, Dr. Minji Choi was looking at some papers when she noticed a math problem written on the side. It was being discussed by a group of Nexari scientists near her. They seemed frustrated and were arguing about it in their musical language. "Excuse me," Minji said to one of them. "Is this a research problem?" The Nexari scientist turned to her. "Yes, Dr. Choi. This equation has puzzled our best minds for 3,000 years. It relates to faster-than-light communication, but the math creates a paradox that seems impossible to solve." Minji looked at the equation. To her, it seemed like a simple problem. She had seen similar puzzles in advanced physics classes on Earth. The trick was to think about it differently. "What if you approach it from the quantum level instead of the macro level?" she suggested, writing a few lines on her tablet. "If you treat each communication particle as existing in multiple states until observed, the paradox disappears." She showed her work to the Nexari scientist. His silver skin went completely white. He called over his colleagues, and they all stared at Minji's solution. Then they started talking very fast in their own language. Is something wrong? Minji asked. Dr. Choi, the scientist said slowly, you just solved the paradox of temporal communication. This has been one of the greatest unsolved problems in galactic science. Really? It just seemed like a standard quantum mechanics problem to me. The Nexari scientists looked at each other, then at the other advanced species in the chamber. Word spread quickly. Within minutes, representatives from dozens of worlds were crowding around Minji's tablet, staring at her solution. The ancient Korvathian representative walked over slowly. His stone-like face showed no emotion, but his ancient eyes studied Minji carefully. How long did this take you to solve? He asked in a voice like grinding rocks. About 2 minutes, Minji said honestly. Maybe 3. I was mostly reading it while listening to the discussion. The chamber went completely silent. The Korvathian's eyes widened slightly, which seemed to be a big reaction for his species. He turned and walked back to the other ancient representatives. They huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Jinwoo watched this happen with growing concern. Something was wrong. The way these ancient species were acting made him nervous. It was like they had just confirmed something they hoped wasn't true. The session ended early. The council leader announced that there were technical matters to discuss and that all non-essential personnel should leave. As the humans gathered their things, Jinwoo noticed that only the most advanced species stayed behind. As they walked back to their quarters, Jinwoo couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. Minji had solved an impossible problem like it was homework. But instead of celebrating, the galaxy's most powerful species looked worried. That night, as Earth's representatives sat in their quarters discussing the day, none of them knew they were already being watched. Hidden cameras recorded their every word. Ancient computers analyzed their behavior. And in secure chambers across the galaxy, emergency meetings were being called. The humans had just proven something that scared the galaxy's oldest civilizations. They had shown that Earth's people could solve problems that had stumped advanced species for thousands of years, and they had done it casually without even trying. The question now wasn't whether humans belonged in the galaxy. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for humans. Taeho Kim had always been good with computers. On Earth, he was known as an archaeologist who used technology to find ancient cities and lost civilizations. But before becoming an archaeologist, he had spent 10 years in the military as a cybersecurity specialist. He knew how to find information that people wanted to keep hidden. Now he was on Nexar Prime, the most technologically advanced world in the galaxy. The Nexari had invited him to study their ancient records to help Earth understand galactic history. It was supposed to be a simple research job, but Taeho noticed something strange on his first day. Every time he asked about Earth's integration process, the Nexari librarians became nervous. They would change the subject or say the information was in another section that they couldn't access right now. After a week of getting the same responses, Taeho decided to investigate on his own. The Nexari library was massive, with millions of data cores storing the history of thousands of civilizations. Taeho was given access to the public sections, but he noticed there were restricted areas that required special permission. When he asked about these areas, he was told they contained sensitive diplomatic information that wasn't relevant to his research. But Taeho's military training had taught him to be suspicious when people said information wasn't relevant. Usually that meant it was very relevant indeed. Late one night, while working alone in the library, Taeho decided to test the security systems. He told himself he was just curious about Nexari technology, but deep down he knew he was looking for something specific, something about Earth that the Nexari didn't want him to find. The security was impressive by galactic standards, but Taeho had spent years breaking into systems that weren't supposed to be breakable. The Nexari had made one mistake. They had assumed that humans couldn't understand their advanced encryption methods. They were wrong. It took Taeho 3 hours to crack the first layer of security. By morning, he had broken through 7 different protective systems that should have been impossible for any non-Nexari to bypass. When he finally accessed the restricted files, what he found made his blood run cold. The files were surveillance reports. Thousands of them. All about Earth, the reports went back over 5,000 years. They contained detailed observations of human behavior, technology development, wars, and social changes. Every major event in human history had been watched and recorded by galactic civilizations. Tejo opened one file dated during World War II. The report described human military tactics in shocking detail. It noted how humans could adapt to any battlefield condition, how they turned disadvantages into advantages, and how they never stopped fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Another file from the Roman Empire period analyzed human engineering abilities. It described how humans built massive structures without advanced technology, how they created complex governments that lasted for centuries, and how they spread their culture across vast distances using only primitive transportation. A more recent file from the space age contained this note: subject species has achieved nuclear capability before developing adequate safety protocols. This pattern matches previous Type 7 Death World apex predators. Recommend continued observation from maximum safe distance. Type 7 Death World apex predators. Tejo had never heard that term before, but it didn't sound like a compliment. He kept reading. The files contained conversations between galactic leaders spanning thousands of years. Most of the conversations were about the same topic: what to do about Earth. They turned nuclear fusion into weapons before they learned to harness it safely. Read one report from a Corvathian observer, a species that can adapt to any environment within a single generation. Toted a Zelthari psychic survey. They've never encountered a problem they couldn't solve through violence or ingenuity. Often both, concluded a Nexari analysis team. But the most disturbing files were the recent ones. They contained detailed studies of human problem-solving abilities, combat effectiveness, and adaptation rates. The conclusions were terrifying and amazing at the same time. According to the galactic observers, humans were capable of things that shouldn't be possible. They could survive in environments that killed other species. They could solve problems that had stumped advanced civilizations for millennia. They could adapt their tactics faster than any known species could respond. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Una Lee was discovering similar truths from a different angle. Una was a military strategist from Earth's Space Force. She had been assigned to a joint research vessel called the Harmony to help develop combined tactics for future galactic peacekeeping missions. The ship's crew included military officers from 12 different species, all supposedly working together as equals. But Una noticed something odd during their first week of training exercises. Whenever they ran combat simulations, the alien officers would defer to human suggestions. At first, she thought they were just being polite to the new species. But as the exercises continued, she realized it was something else. The aliens were scared of human military thinking. During one simulation, they faced a scenario where hostile forces had superior technology and numbers. The standard galactic approach was to retreat and call for reinforcements. But Una suggested a different strategy. What if we use their advantage against them? She proposed. Their superior numbers mean they'll have trouble coordinating. If we hit them from multiple directions and force them to split their attention, their technology advantage becomes less important. Commander Zelthak, a veteran Zelthari officer with over a century of experience, stared at her. You want to attack a superior force? Not exactly attack, Una explained. More like controlled chaos. We make them react to us instead of following their plan. Keep them off balance until they make mistakes. The other alien officers looked uncomfortable, but they agreed to try her strategy. The simulation results were shocking. The human approach didn't just work, it was devastating. The superior enemy force was completely destroyed with minimal losses to the peacekeeping team. Run it again, ordered Commander Zelthak. The simulation must have malfunctioned. They ran the same scenario 10 more times. Each time Una's tactics achieved complete victory. The alien officers became increasingly quiet as the results came in. After the 10th simulation, Lieutenant Korvac, a young Corvathian officer, asked Una a question that made everyone uncomfortable. How did you know their weaknesses so quickly? What do you mean? Una replied. You identified 17 different tactical vulnerabilities in their formation within the first 30 seconds of the simulation. It took our best military computers 4 hours to find 12 of them. Una shrugged. It's just pattern recognition. You look at how they're set up and imagine how you would exploit it if you were fighting them. The bridge went silent. Commander Zelthak's mental voice spoke directly into everyone's minds, which was unusual since he normally spoke aloud during mixed species meetings. She's doing threat assessment calculations in real time. his mental voice whispered. Without computer assistance. That level of tactical analysis should require advanced artificial intelligence. Yuna didn't hear the mental conversation, but she noticed that all the alien officers were staring at her with a mixture of respect and fear. Over the following weeks, the pattern repeated itself. No matter what scenario they faced, human strategies consistently outperformed standard galactic tactics. The aliens had centuries or even millennia of military experience, but humans seemed to think about warfare in ways that were completely foreign to them. The aliens approached battles like chess games, with careful planning and measured responses. Humans approached battles like they were wrestling with wild animals, expecting everything to go wrong and preparing to adapt on the fly. During one particularly difficult simulation involving a hostage rescue, Yuna's strategy was so unconventional that the alien officers initially refused to implement it. "You want us to destroy our own ship?" asked Commander Zelthak. "Not destroy," Yuna corrected. "Controlled detonation. We make it look like an accident, force an evacuation, then use the chaos to extract the hostages while everyone's distracted." "That's insane," said Lieutenant Korvac. "That's the point," Yuna replied. "They'll never expect it because it is insane. But it'll work because they'll be too busy reacting to think clearly." The simulation proved her right again. The seemingly suicidal strategy resulted in a perfect rescue with 0 casualties. That night, Yuna overheard a conversation between the alien officers. They were speaking in hushed tones, thinking she couldn't understand their translation devices from across the room. But Yuna had always been good at reading lips, and the universal translators made the words clear enough. "She thinks like a predator," whispered Commander Zelthak. "All humans do," replied Lieutenant Korvac. "Have you read the restricted files?" "What restricted files?" "The ones about their homeworld. Earth isn't just inhabited, it's a class-tethered death world. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. Humans evolved by being the most dangerous thing on the most dangerous planet anyone's ever found." Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. She was starting to understand why the advanced species seemed so nervous around humans. It wasn't because humans were evil or aggressive. It was because humans were. Dr. Hyun-Woo Jung had studied rocks and planets his entire life. As Earth's leading geologist, he thought he understood what made worlds habitable. But standing on the survey ship Discovery with his colleague Dr. Soman Kwan, he was about to learn how wrong he had been. The mission was simple enough. A joint expedition with scientists from 6 different species would catalog potentially habitable worlds in the Outer Rim territories. Hyun-Woo was there to study planetary geology, while Soman would analyze climate patterns. It was supposed to be routine scientific work. The expedition leader was Dr. Vorthak, a Nexari scientist with over 3 centuries of experience in planetary surveys. The team also included specialists from the Korvathians, Zelthari, and 3 other advanced species. Everyone was excited to work with the new human scientists and learn about Earth's unique perspectives on planetary science. On their first day together, Dr. Vorthak asked each team member to describe their homeworld's conditions. It was a standard practice that helped scientists understand how different perspectives might affect their observations. The Nexari scientist described a world with carefully controlled weather, moderate temperatures, and crystal cities that filtered sunlight to perfect levels. The Korvathian talked about ancient stone cities with stable climates that hadn't changed in millions of years. The Zelthari representative described floating cities above peaceful clouds where psychic energy made life harmonious. When it was Hyun-Woo's turn, he started describing Earth like it was perfectly normal. "Earth has a pretty standard gravity, about 9.8 meters per second squared," he began. "The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, which can be a bit reactive, but it's stable enough. We get some weather variety, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, that sort of thing. The tectonic plates are fairly active, so we get earthquakes and volcanic eruptions regularly." Dr. Vorthak held up one of his 4 hands. "Excuse me, Dr. Jang, did you say your gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared?" "Yes, that's right. Why?" The alien scientists started looking at each other with concerned expressions. Dr. Vorthak checked his tablet several times. That's nearly 3 times the galactic standard for habitable worlds," Dr. Vorthak said slowly. Hyun-Woo looked confused. "Really? Huh. I guess I never thought about it being unusual." Soman joined the conversation. "The weather systems are probably more interesting," she said cheerfully. "We get some really impressive storms. Hurricane winds can reach over 250 kilometers per hour. The temperature differences can be extreme too, from 50 degrees Celsius in deserts to -40 in winter regions. And the seasonal changes keep things interesting. The alien scientists were now staring at both humans like they were describing a nightmare. Dr. Zelthara, the psychic specialist, spoke up with a trembling voice. "Your planet has temperature swings of 90 degrees? Oh, that's just the normal range," Somin replied. "In some places, it can vary by more than 100 degrees between seasons. And that's not counting extreme weather events." "Extreme weather events?" Dr. Vorthak asked weakly. "You know, tornadoes, hurricanes, ice storms, heat waves, floods, droughts," Hunwoo listed casually. "The usual stuff. Oh, and we get hit by space rocks pretty regularly. Most burn up in the atmosphere, but some make it through." The alien scientists were now looking at their tablets frantically, running calculations and checking databases. Dr. Zhang. "Dr. Quan," Dr. Vorthak said very carefully, "would you mind if I asked about your planet's geological activity?" "Sure," Hunwoo said. "We've got about 70 major tectonic plates that are constantly moving. This creates mountain ranges, ocean trenches, and lots of seismic activity. We get thousands of earthquakes every day, though most are too small to notice. The major ones can be pretty destructive." "And volcanic activity?" asked Dr. Corvin, the Corvathian geologist. "Oh, very active. We've got about 2,500 potentially active volcanoes around the world. Major eruptions happen every few years somewhere on the planet. The really big ones can affect global weather patterns." Dr. Corvin's stone-like face had somehow managed to turn pale. He was typing frantically on his tablet. "What about your biosphere?" Dr. Zelthara asked. "Surely the life forms are—" "Channel?" Somin laughed. "Not really. Earth's biosphere is incredibly competitive. Everything is basically trying to eat everything else. We've got predators and prey relationships at every level. Some plants are poisonous, some animals hunt in packs, and some organisms can kill you with a single bite. But humans evolved alongside these death machines?" Dr. Vorthak asked. "We didn't just evolve alongside them," Hunwoo explained. "We became the dominant species. Humans are apex predators. We've learned to hunt, farm, and control almost every other life form on the planet." The alien scientists excused themselves for a private meeting. Through the thin walls of the ship, the humans could hear agitated conversations in multiple alien languages. When the aliens returned, Dr. Vorthak looked like he had seen a ghost. "Dr. Zhang, Dr. Quan, I need to inform you that according to our classification system, Earth is a Class Low Tween Death World. This is the most dangerous category in our database. Planets like this are usually avoided at all costs. But we live there," Somin pointed out. "Billions of us." "Yes," Dr. Vorthak said quietly. "That's what's so terrifying." The expedition continued, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The alien scientists watched the humans constantly, taking notes on everything they did. When Hunwoo casually lifted a piece of equipment that 3 Nexari struggled with together, they made frantic calculations about human muscle density. When Somin worked comfortably in environmental conditions that forced the aliens to wear protective gear, they updated their files on human adaptability. But the real demonstration of human capabilities came a week later when they landed on Kepler 442b, a supposedly safe world that the galactic survey teams had classified as perfectly habitable. The planet seemed peaceful enough. Rolling hills covered with purple vegetation, a comfortable temperature, and no obvious dangers. The team split up to cover more ground, with each scientist focusing on their specialty. Do-hyun Cha, a human marine assigned to provide security for the expedition, was escorting Dr. Vorthak to a mineral formation about 2 kilometers from the ship. Do-hyun was a quiet professional who had served in Earth's most dangerous combat zones. To him, this mission seemed like a peaceful vacation. They were collecting samples when Dr. Vorthak's scanner started beeping frantically. "We need to leave immediately," Dr. Vorthak said, his voice full of panic. "Large predators approaching. Multiple contacts." Do-hyun looked around calmly. "How large?" "The scanner indicates creatures approximately 4 meters long, moving at high speed. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes. How many?" "At least 12. Possibly more." Dr. Vorthak was already running toward the ship, but it was over 2 kilometers away. Even if they ran at full speed, they wouldn't make it in time. Do-hyun, however, wasn't running. He was studying the terrain, the wind direction, and the approaching threat markers on Dr. Vorthak's scanner. "Dr. Vorthak, Stop running and get behind that rock formation, Do-hyun called out. What? We need to reach the ship. We won't make it. But we don't need to. Trust me. Reluctantly, Dr. Vorthak took cover behind the rocks. Do-hyun joined him, but instead of looking scared, he seemed almost relaxed. What's your plan? Dr. Vorthak whispered. Improvise, Do-hyun replied. The predators appeared moments later. They looked like giant lizards with too many teeth and claws that could cut through metal. They moved in a coordinated pack, clearly intelligent hunters. Dr. Vorthak expected Do-hyun to use his military weapons. Instead, the human marine picked up a rock. What are you doing? Dr. Vorthak hissed. Testing a theory, Do-hyun said. He threw the rock in a high arc that landed about 50 meters away from their position. The sound made the predators turn toward the noise. Their hearing is better than their eyesight, Do-hyun observed. And they hunt in a pattern formation. Interesting. He picked up another rock and threw it in a different direction. Again, the predators responded to the sound, but this time their formation spread out. They're pack hunters, but they rely on sound coordination, Do-hyun continued, as if he was giving a lecture instead of fighting for his life. If I disrupt their communication... Do-hyun started throwing rocks in rapid succession, creating noise in multiple directions. The predators became confused, breaking their formation as they tried to track the sounds. Then Do-hyun did something that made Dr. Vorthak's brain stop working properly. The human marine charged directly at the largest predator, but he didn't charge blindly. As he ran, he picked up more rocks and threw them at the creature's eyes, temporarily blinding it. When it swung its massive claws, Do-hyun was already rolling to the side, using the creature's own momentum against it. The predator crashed into the ground where Do-hyun had been standing. Before it could recover, Do-hyun had climbed onto its back and was using a sharp rock to attack its nervous system at the base of its skull. The creature collapsed within seconds. The other predators stopped there confused, searching and focused on Do-hyun. But instead of being surrounded, Do-hyun had positioned himself so that they could only attack him one at a time through the narrow gaps in the rock formation. What followed was the most terrifying display of combat adaptation Dr. Vorthak had ever witnessed. Do-hyun turned the environment. Gunji-nam had always been good at finding patterns in data. As Earth's top intelligence analyst, she could look at thousands of seemingly unrelated pieces of information and find the connections that others missed. When the Galactic Intelligence Service offered her a position as a liaison officer, she jumped at the chance to apply her skills on a larger scale. The Galactic Intelligence Service was headquartered on a massive space station called Haven that orbited between 3 different star systems. It was home to intelligence professionals from over 100 different species, all working together to maintain peace and stability across the galaxy. Yoonji's job was supposed to be simple. She would help human and alien intelligence services share information about potential threats like space pirates, Rouge AI systems, and unstable governments. It was routine work that required someone who understood both human and alien thinking patterns. But after 3 weeks on the job, Yoonji started noticing something strange in the data she was processing. Every major galactic power had files marked Terran Contingency Protocols. At first, she assumed these were standard diplomatic procedures for dealing with Earth's integration into galactic society. But when she tried to access these files, she was told they were classified above her security level. This made Yoonji curious. Why would routine diplomatic protocols need such high security clearance? She started paying attention to the small details. When intelligence officers from different species discussed Earth in meetings, they used specific code words. When they received reports about human activities, the reports were immediately forwarded to special departments that didn't seem to work on anything else. Most telling of all, every time someone mentioned human capabilities in a positive way, the alien intelligence officers would exchange looks and quickly change the subject. Yoonji decided to do what she did best: analyze patterns. She started tracking the flow of information through the intelligence network. Every report about human activities, every assessment of human technology, every analysis of human behavior, she mapped where it went and who reviewed it. What she found was shocking. There was an entire shadow network within the galactic intelligence community, dedicated solely to monitoring and analyzing humans. This network included the highest-ranking officers from every major species. and they met regularly to discuss what they called the human problem. Using her analytical skills and some carefully placed information requests, Yoonji began to piece together what this shadow network was really doing. They weren't just monitoring humans for routine intelligence purposes. They were developing contingency plans. Contingency plans for what? She needed to find out. The breakthrough came when she noticed that Admiral Corthan, a high-ranking Corvathian intelligence officer, had been accessing unusual databases. These databases contained military assessments and strategic planning documents that had nothing to do with current galactic politics. Yoonji managed to track the access patterns and discovered that Admiral Corthan was reviewing historical data about species that had been contained by galactic forces in the past, species that had become too dangerous to be allowed to expand freely. This led her to the most disturbing discovery of all. Hidden within the routine intelligence databases were complete military assessments of every major human population center, industrial facility, and defensive installation. The galactic powers had detailed invasion plans for Earth, but these weren't invasion plans designed to conquer Earth. They were invasion plans designed to contain humanity. If they ever became a threat to galactic security, the files contained strategic assessments that made Yoonji's blood run cold. According to the galaxy's best military minds, any attempt to contain humanity through force would require the combined fleets of at least 15 major species. Even then, success was only estimated at 60% probability. More disturbing were the notes about why such extreme measures might be necessary. The files contained this assessment. Human expansion beyond their home system poses an existential threat to current galactic civilization. Their adaptation rate, problem-solving capabilities, and resource optimization exceed all known parameters for stable integration. Yoonji realized she was looking at plans for genocide. The galaxy's major powers were preparing to destroy humanity if humans ever became too successful. But the most chilling part was that even these extreme plans assumed human victory as a likely outcome. The files contained contingency plans for contingency plans. What to do if the initial attempt to contain humanity failed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, engineer Seo Jin-oh was unknowingly providing more evidence for why the aliens feared humans so much. Seo Jin was working on the research station Harmony as part of a joint engineering project. The station was testing new technologies that would help integrate human and alien systems for future space exploration. It was supposed to be peaceful scientific work. The station's primary power systems were a marvel of Nexari engineering. They used quantum energy fields to provide clean, efficient power that could run the entire station for decades without maintenance. The system was so advanced that only Nexari engineers were supposed to be able to work on it. But 3 weeks into the project, disaster struck. A solar storm from the system's star disrupted the quantum fields in ways that the Nexari engineers had never seen before. The power system began fluctuating wildly, threatening to shut down completely. If the power failed, the station's life support systems would only last 6 hours. The Nexari engineering team worked frantically to stabilize the system. They tried every standard procedure in their technical manuals. They contacted their homeworld for emergency assistance. They even attempted experimental fixes that had never been tested before. Nothing worked. After 12 hours of desperate attempts, the lead Nexari engineer, Dr. Velthos, made an announcement that terrified everyone on the station. The quantum matrix has destabilized beyond our ability to repair. We need to evacuate immediately. The system will fail completely within 4 hours. The evacuation ships could only carry half the station's population at a time. This meant that half the crew would die unless someone could find a way to fix the power system. Seo Jun had been watching the Nexari engineers work, trying to understand their technology so he could help with the integration project. He wasn't supposed to touch the quantum systems. Human technology was considered too primitive to interface with Nexari equipment. But as he watched the evacuation preparations begin, Seojin had an idea. "Dr. Velthos," he called out, "what if we don't try to repair the quantum matrix?" "What do you mean?" Dr. Velthos replied, "Without the matrix, there's no power. What if we bypass it entirely? Create a parallel system using the backup generators and some creative wiring." Dr. Velthos looked confused. "That's impossible. The backup generators only provide 5% of our power needs. Right now, yes. But what if we modify them? Before Dr. Velthos could stop him, Seojun was crawling through maintenance tunnels with a toolkit that looked primitive compared to Nexari equipment. He was following power cables and examining junction boxes that the alien engineers had ignored. "What are you doing?" Dr. Velthos asked over the communication system. "Jury-rigging a solution," Seojun replied. "On Earth, we call it making it work with what you have." For the next 3 hours, while half the station evacuated and the other half prepared to die, Seojun performed engineering miracles with spare parts and improvised tools. He connected backup generators in series to multiply their output. He rerouted power through non-essential systems to create new pathways. He even used pieces of broken equipment as components for circuits that shouldn't have been possible to create. The Nexari engineers watched in amazement and horror as Seojun essentially rebuilt their power grid using methods that violated every principle of safe engineering practice. He was creating systems that should have exploded, bypassing safety protocols that existed for good reasons, and making connections that their computers said were impossible. But it worked. Not only did it worked better than the original system. Seojun's improvised power grid was more efficient, more stable, and more resistant to the solar storm interference than the advanced Nexari technology had been. "How?" Dr. Velthos asked when the crisis was over. "Redundancy and adaptability," Seojun explained, wiping grease from his hands. "Your system was more advanced, but it was also more specialized. When conditions changed beyond its parameters, it couldn't adapt. My system is cruder, but it's flexible." "But you created 17 different safety violations," Dr. Velthos protested. "Safety protocols are guidelines, not laws of physics," Seojun replied. "When you understand the underlying principles, you can work around the protocols if you need to." Dr. Velthos sent an encrypted report to his superiors that night. "Human engineer has successfully modified our most advanced technology using primitive tools and improvised methods. Recommend immediate revision of human technological assessment. They do not just use technology, they reinvent it in real time." Back on Haven Station, Yoonji was putting together the final pieces of the puzzle. The Shadow Intelligence Network, the contingency plans, the historical assessments, they all pointed to the same conclusion. The galaxy's major powers weren't preparing for war with humanity. They were preparing for... Dr. Naeon Shin had dedicated her life to understanding the universe. As Earth's chief scientist and leader of the human delegation to the Galactic Science Council, she believed that knowledge was the key to peaceful cooperation between species. She had no idea that the knowledge she was about to discover would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The invitation came from the ancient archives on Korvath Prime, the oldest known repository of galactic history. For the first time in over 10,000 years, the Korvathians were offering access to their most sacred collection, the Chronicle of Extinct Civilizations. "This is an incredible honor," Dr. Shin told Minho Wu, the diplomatic attaché who would accompany her to Korvath Prime. "The Chronicle contains records of every civilization that has ever existed in our galaxy. Species that vanished millions of years ago. Cultures we never knew existed." Minho nodded, but he seemed nervous. Over the past few months, he had been hearing disturbing reports from other human delegates across the galaxy. Reports about secret meetings, classified files, and contingency plans that all seemed to focus on humanity. "Dr. Shin," Minho said carefully, "do you think there's a reason why they're offering us access now? The Korvathians have guarded these archives for millennia." "I'm sure it's just part of the integration process," Dr. Shin replied. "They want us to understand galactic history so we can better appreciate our place in the community." But as their ship approached Korvath Prime, both humans noticed something unusual. The planet was surrounded by more military ships than they had ever seen in one place. Korvathian, Nexari, and Zelthari vessels floated together in formations that suggested they were preparing for something important. The ancient archives were located deep underground on Korvath Prime, in chambers carved from living rock over millions of years. The Korvathian librarians who greeted them seemed more nervous than honored to have human visitors. The Chronicle contains difficult knowledge, warned Elder Corthan, the chief archivist. Some of the records are disturbing. They tell stories of civilizations that perhaps should not be remembered. Dr. Shin and Minho followed Elder Korthan through corridors lined with memory crystals, each one containing the complete history of a dead civilization. The number of crystals was staggering, hundreds of thousands of them, representing species that had lived and died before Earth had even formed. They reached a special chamber at the heart of the archives. This room was different from the others. It was smaller, more secure, and the crystals here glowed with a different color of light. This section contains the records of the apex species, Elder Korthan explained. Civilizations that achieved technological and biological superiority over all others in their time periods. What happened to them? Minho asked. Elder Korthan's stone-like face showed an expression that might have been sadness. That is what you are here to learn. The first record they accessed was about a species called the Vorthani. The crystal showed images of creatures that looked somewhat like humans, but larger and stronger. They had evolved on a world with extreme gravity and constant seismic activity. The Vorthani achieved interstellar travel approximately 4 million years ago, Elder Korthan narrated as the images played. They were remarkable problem solvers who could adapt to any environment. Within 3,000 years of leaving their homeworld, they had established colonies in over 1,000 star systems. The images showed Vorthani cities on dozens of different worlds, each one perfectly adapted to local conditions. They had built underwater cities, floating cities in gas giant atmospheres, and underground cities on worlds with no atmosphere at all. They sound amazing, Dr. Shin said. What happened to them? The images changed to show something that made both humans uncomfortable. Massive fleets of ships surrounding Vorthani colonies, battles in space and on planetary surfaces, the systematic destruction of everything the Vorthani had built. The galaxy united against them, Elder Korthan said quietly. Every species, every civilization, every government joined forces to contain the Vorthani threat. Threat? Minho asked. What threat? They seemed peaceful. That was the problem, Elder Korthan replied. The Vorthani were not aggressive. They were simply inevitable. Every problem they encountered, they solved. Every challenge they faced, they overcame. Every resource they needed, they found a way to obtain. The crystal showed more disturbing images. Vorthani technology advancing at impossible rates. Vorthani colonies expanding faster than other species could track. Vorthani solutions to galactic problems that made other civilizations obsolete. Within 5,000 years, the Vorthani had become so advanced that other species could not compete with them in any meaningful way. Elder Korthan continued. They did not conquer through war. They conquered through excellence. Dr. Shin felt a chill run down her spine. So the galaxy destroyed them? The galaxy tried to contain them, Elder Korthan corrected. But the war lasted over 1,000 years and consumed the resources of 600 allied species. In the end, the Vorthani were not defeated. They simply vanished. Vanished? One day, every Vorthani colony went silent simultaneously. Their ships stopped moving. Their cities became empty. No one knows what happened to them, but they left behind technology that we still cannot understand today. Elder Korthan activated another crystal. This one showed a different species called the Zarathi. They were smaller than humans, with large eyes and delicate features, but their story was disturbingly similar to the Vorthani. The Zarathi appeared 3 million years ago, Elder Korthan explained. They were even more remarkable than the Vorthani. They could solve problems that other species did not even recognize as problems. They could see patterns in chaos that revealed hidden truths about the universe. The images showed Zarathi achievements that defied belief. They had learned to manipulate gravity, time, and space itself. They had created artificial intelligences that could predict the future with perfect accuracy. They had solved the fundamental questions about the nature of reality that other species had been asking for millions of years. And they were also destroyed? Dr. Shin asked. The galaxy tried, Elder Korthan replied. But the Zarathi were too advanced by the time anyone recognized the threat. They defended themselves easily against the combined forces of 800 species. The war was over in 50 years, with the Zarathi victorious in every engagement. Then what happened to them? They left. Elder Corthan said simply. After proving they could not be defeated, the Zarathi announced that they were departing for another galaxy. They said our galaxy was insufficiently challenging for their continued development. Minho was starting to understand the pattern. How many species like this have there been? Elder Corthan activated crystal after crystal. Each one showed a different apex species that had risen to dominance and then either vanished, left, or been destroyed by galactic coalitions. The Hithrani, who could adapt their biology in real time. The Kostari, who turned every limitation into an advantage. The Nexthari, who treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. In the 4 billion years since Complex E, life began in this galaxy. There have been 17 apex species, Elder Corthan said. Each one was unique, but they all shared certain characteristics. Dr. Shin had to ask the question, even though she already knew the answer. What characteristics? They evolved on Class X or higher death worlds. They showed exceptional adaptation rates. They approached problems with creativity rather than established protocols. They could not be contained through conventional means. And they always exceeded every projection of their potential capabilities. Elder Corthan activated one final crystal. This one did not show images of an alien species. It showed humans. This is why you are here, Elder Corthan said. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations have been watching Earth for 5,000 years, hoping we were wrong about what your species represents. The crystal showed detailed observations of human history. Every major technological advancement, every great war, every example of human problem-solving and adaptation. All of it had been recorded and analyzed by galactic observers. According to our analysis, humanity matches the pattern of apex species development more closely than any civilization we have ever encountered, Elder Corthan continued. Your progress rate, adaptation capabilities, and problem-solving methods are all consistent with previous apex species. But we're not trying to conquer anyone, Dr. Shin protested. We just want to be part of the galactic community. That is exactly what makes you so dangerous, Elder Corthan replied. Apex species never try to conquer. They simply become so capable that conquest becomes inevitable. Minho asked the question that was burning in both their minds. What is the galaxy planning to do about us? Elder Corthan's ancient eyes showed something that might have been pity. There is a meeting happening above us right now. Representatives from every major species are debating whether to implement the Terminus Protocol. What's the Terminus Protocol? Complete elimination of humanity before you advance beyond containment capability. The room fell silent. Dr. Shin and Minho stared at the crystal showing images of human achievements, suddenly understanding that every success, every innovation, every solved problem had been